Peace be upon you, and God's mercy and blessings. How do we interpret what Einstein says? Imagination is more important than knowledge, for it shapes the future. We, who come from the realms of consciousness, welcome you all. Today, we convene to mark a significant transition, shifting our perspective from knowledge merely as static content towards recognizing knowledge as a dynamic, transformative power that fundamentally shapes the very essence of life and our collective future. We'll delve into the Global Knowledge Index and its tangible, far-reaching influence on global policymaking and international strategies. We convene under the patronage of the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Knowledge Foundation and the UN Development Program that gives us the courage to envision a brighter future built on equitable and responsible global development standards. Since the dawn of time, alchemists have dreamed of turning lead into gold. We practice a chemistry of a distinct and different nature, one that is considerably more complex, yet undeniably more noble. It involves transforming raw, unrefined data into profound wisdom and giving silent, inanimate numbers the breath of life. And our future. The Global Knowledge Index serves as our laboratory, and the numbers are our fundamental building blocks. But can a single number truly tell the complete story for every point that the Knowledge Index measures? A profound, invisible world lies hidden behind the numbers and data. It awaits those who can truly read it with an open, discerning eye and a passionate, fervent spirit. When we take a moment to look at this report, which has hosted over 149 nations within its comprehensive datasets and more than 195 in various distinct data categories, we do not merely perceive data points, but rather we discern intellects and capabilities that might be harnessed or left untapped, alongside future trajectories awaiting the inscription of decisive action. Sweden, for example, is currently positioned at the top with 68.3. The United Arab Emirates holds the 26th position with a score of 60.9 points. These are not merely figures, but rather significant indicators of the nation's remarkable capacity to transform accumulated knowledge into a tangible and impactful reality. Or, as the philosopher Plato wisely observed, truth often hides behind symbols. It requires someone with profound insight to interpret them judiciously. In pre-university education, Arab countries managed to achieve a score of 64.1 points. And in information and communication technology, it's 49.4, compared to 48.2 globally. Meanwhile, research and innovation still ranges between 31 and 45. This reveals a significant gap between intellectual capabilities and the actual capacity to translate them into concrete action. As Nietzsche reminds us, what is measured is what is created here. The human mind constantly poses the question, because the answer seems to be truly endless. Is knowledge something that can only be quantified and measured, or is it meant to be deeply lived and experienced? Do we generally think solely in terms of cold, hard numbers to fully grasp the future? As Brilliant Carl Sagan once observed, true science is not merely about the acquisition of isolated facts, but rather the profound understanding of exactly where to discover them, and more importantly, why. Today, we're delving into an intellectual web that transcends mere data. Our session's champions today are minds that discern the subtle link between phenomena before they appear connected. They convert even the smallest questions into comprehensive, wide-ranging knowledge maps, enabling us to clearly see how various indicators are transformed into impactful policy decisions. This is true innovation that profoundly changes the reality of people's lives and ultimately redefines the future for everyone. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Dr. Maged Osman, the Chief Executive Officer of the Basira Center and the former Minister of Communications and Information Technology for Egypt. He is widely recognized as one of the most prominent Arab voices in the crucial field of linking data to effective decision-making processes. Basira Center leads the way as a pioneering institution in measuring public opinion and transforming evidence into actionable policies. And joining me is Dr. Iman Al-Shara, the Director.
And also Ms. Iman Al-Sharrah, Director of National Knowledge Economy Center, General Secretary of the Supreme Council for Planning and Development. She's taking
Secrétaire général du Conseil supérieur de planification et de développement.
Into knowing the knowledge requirement. Professor Hogo and the director of UNU Merit, and he's one of the economists and senior researchers, the Joint Research and Training Institute, and he helped into many policies and innovation. Sorry, Dr. Sally Mabrouk, the manager, director of strategy and corporate excellence in the Cisco. She will be joining us soon, and she worked into transforming the culture into development tools, and she's working in
de la culture et vers des outils de développement. Elle travaille sur les deux systèmes. Bienvenue, Dr. Sally. Nous remercions Dr. Sally.
just fine. الدكتورة كانت مرتبطة بارتباط رسمي. دكتور ماجد، أنت اشتغلت كثيراً في عالم البيانات، بل نكاد نقول أنك جورو البيانات العربي. من وجهة نظرك تظهر البيانات في المؤشر فجوة واضحة بين قدرة الحكومات على تحويلها إلى قرارات. كيف يمكن لنا بناء ثقافة مؤسسية
where we read the data in the right way and criticizing it in not subjective way, our and best scenarios in a knowledge aspect? Thank you so much for this question. And before we go with the answer of this question, we can ponder on the chain of value, because the data by itself is not the aim, but it's a mean to another thing. So when we talk about data, information, then taking small decisions based on this information, then build policies, comprehensive policies based on these knowledges. And based on these policies, we repeat the circle again. So we start with the data, you mean? Then we plan, we think, we evaluate.
And here we need to consider, why is institutional culture absent? Your very question is, why is institutional culture missing? Yes, and this institutional culture always transforms into one that uses data in a justificatory way, rather than a neutral one. The truth is, establishing a culture that promotes the critical and unbiased interpretation of data. This is a very crucial point for the success of any decision or the effectiveness of any public policy. Let's first consider, why is this institutional culture absent in the first place? I believe this institutional culture is missing because
when it comes to the area of data, we have number of figures where we talk about the inputs and the outputs and the operations, the processes, the operational processes. And in many cases, in the government entities, it leans to indicators that reflects inputs or processes. So how can we take back these data and knowledge that been created to people? How can it come back to them, and how can it benefit them? In order to transform this knowledge into positive knowledge, looking into the data in a constructive way and non-biased way, we need to implant the transparency and accountability, and we need to ensure that we don't need to use the data for ourselves only. So we need to follow the aspect of knowledge for all, where the data and information is being provided based on it can be shared, and it cannot be exclusive. So sharing it and the management of the cycle. So I think in many cases it's been selective to use the data. So if the data is based on my interests and aims or my program in a political way, and if it's not, then I use it. If not, it could be not useful, or I will not use it. So it's more of a cosmetic aspect, you mean? We don't want the justified decision or a decision that you only justified, but it needs to be beneficial to the target audience. I would go to Miss Iman. The indicator shows that investment in the human capital, which is your core business, will not have an impact until we ensure a comprehensive vision to protect this investment and the human capital. How can we combine all of these aspects together in teaching skills and knowledges in a comprehensive aspect? Unable to hear the speaker? Unable to hear the speaker, please ask the speaker to use the microphone. Interpretation is not possible. The speaker is not using. Okay, back. Very right words. We were talking about the human capital. Human capital is the cornerstone for any community. Maybe in our communities there is a gap, which is very clear, as you mentioned, that this investment in the human capital and or the products or the outputs in many cultures, when it comes into the sponsorship, the aim and the care in the innovative economies is very limited. They don't see a massive need for innovation. That's why we see all of the sponsorships. Even if there was an investment in this aspect, it's not major investment in innovation. And also believing it. We also have a belief, like a lack of belief in innovation. So how can we combine education with technology and skills and data? How can we combine all of them together? When it comes to education, we should shortcut it into policies that we can come out with, which includes the adaptation of education with the marketplace. Second point, the continuous learning, especially when it comes to acquiring the skills. Skills are not fixed. It's in a fast pace changing. And therefore, we should have a full system which is agile and resilient to ensure the continuous learning. And I think this is one of the good initiatives by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum to support the continuous learning. The third point is to use the technology as a mean and not the assurance. Technology is a mean to increase the quality and productivity in learning. So what is the resilient or the flexible way to connect and fill these gaps in a very fast way to have the input and output of education? We need to have a national vision which is very clear and policies between countries which reflects into the aspect.
Mr. Hugo, based on your long-standing work on knowledge matrix, what do you see at the most policy-sensitive indicators in the Global Knowledge Index, those that government often misunderstand or maybe underutilize?
Okay, thank you for your question. I'm going to take off my headsets because that's confusing. I think it depends a bit. If you look at the long list of indicators in this report, but also in other reports, you can classify them. There are indicators which are more, which can be more directly influenced by policies by the government. There are indicators which are more structural, which are, say, more difficult to change in the short to medium run, and they're more changeable in the long run. Then you have indicators which can have a low impact, which can have a medium impact, which can have a high impact. So what you're looking for are those indicators which, as a government, you have a direct impact in changing them in the short to medium run, and which also have a high impact on the economy or on society. If I look at, well, I don't have all the 115 indicators of the Global Knowledge Index in the back of my mind, but usually I would say just to focus on a few of them. If you look, for example, at the indicators related to education, you can say the government has a direct impact. Because by its educational policies, they can have an impact, for example, on the inflow of students, they can have an impact on the graduation of students. However, if you look at the impact of the education indicators on the economy or the society, it's not short run. Because you will have an impact on, say, the number of graduated students this year, but it will time to build up and see this, that it will have a larger impact on, say, the working age population. If I look at, say, the index, which is my favorite one, which is the research, development and innovation one, as I've been working on this topic for a long time, what helps, for example, are subsidies, R&D subsidies, tax credits, which can help companies to invest more in research and development, and then hopefully also see that there are more positive results in either product or process innovations. So it really depends. Indicators where policy has a more direct impact, and indicators which have, say, a faster and also longer lasting impact on the economy.
Our question to Your Excellency, it's about the indicator. The indicator clearly reveals that intangible cognitive capital, such as culture, language, and identity, has a direct relationship with the quality of human capital. How do these elements, when taken together, impact the ability of nations to formulate policies that are more flexible, more sustainable, and truly genuine?
I truly appreciate you for bringing up this non-material aspect, pause, which we consider to be the very soul, pause, and the material part is, in truth, the body. We understand that throughout the past decades, the primary focus in assessing knowledge has been predominantly centered on its material dimension, and this is quite natural because it's the easiest aspect to quantify. However, I believe that after this level of cognitive and institutional maturity, along with the vast accumulation of experiences regarding international indicators and knowledge, has now made it our imperative duty to we are dedicating an equal level of attention to the non-material, the intangible aspect. The reality is, we're not proposing a transition to an entirely new or separate perspective. Instead, what we are emphasizing is how deeply it integrates and complements that, highlighting its profound significance. This, indeed, is the absolutely critical component that we must bring forward and discuss with utmost seriousness. Skills are of the utmost importance. Infrastructure is also critically important. However, we must draw a clear comparison between the investment we make in human resources and human capital and what exactly constitutes cultural capital. Cultural capital is everything that is shared. It is, we might say, for instance, that education grants an individual the wings to soar and fly, but the cultural dimension, or the ethical and value-based dimension, is the compass that will truly show this person the path in whatever direction they choose to proceed. And its full integration is extremely important for us if we truly possess it. So, if we focus on your presentation on both sides, on the international or societal aspect, or even at the smaller institutional level, we see that many institutions integrated infrastructures are established, starting with investment in human capital, digital technological infrastructures, everything. But how many institutions are truly capable of building a lasting legacy and creating the profound civilizational value they leave behind? Of course, when we consider large corporations, what truly constitutes the actual value of a company like Apple or Google isn't merely their tangible products, but rather it's their enduring legacy, their profound and lasting legacy. This very same concept, this identical product, if you will, extends its application to entire nations and their civilizations. Innovation is not merely about bringing in and training people, preparing them, and establishing digital infrastructure. Not all of them will become Google, and not all of them will become Apple. He embodies the unique spirit that is truly needed. So the more difficult question is, do we truly comprehend this? We are aware of it, but is it about the measurement of all that is intangible? The measurement of all that is intangible is exceedingly difficult indeed. Consequently, is there, and I'm saying this, of course, from ISESCO's official standpoint, given our constant focus on education, culture, and science, and our efforts to gather all this heritage, this intangible culture, is it truly possible for us to measure the non-material dimensions of knowledge? Of course, there is a framework that we are truly working on with our partners, the UNDP and the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Knowledge Foundation for some time now, and we are presenting a very important index, which is the Civilizational Readiness Index and the Readiness Index. These civilizational aspects rely on measurable factors, for example, cognitive values. What are the values in society or even values within institutions? How do we perceive the role of the educator? I mean, if we insist that the value of learning must remain high, what then is the teacher's form? What is the teacher's true worth? What is the capacity of society or the institution to truly be open? Are they genuinely open or not? What is their actual ability to effectively deal with the challenges they face? Not everything, data alone is simply not sufficient. Learning by itself is also not enough. These are just tools, but cognitive values are a very important part. The second equally important part is our vision for the future, how we see the future and how. Is it society or the institution? To what extent is its connection to the future truly open? Does it actively engage with the future, acting as a key player and influencer? And what about the prevailing social values? To what degree are these social values deeply embedded within the institution or within the broader society? How much trust is truly built into the spirit of cooperation and collaboration? The values of cooperation, just how much all these are values that we can truly measure by observing the presence of behavior. So, this intangible dimension, we are indeed very capable of measuring it. However, at present, the indicators of knowledge alone will not be sufficient or complete, and we will truly be unable to establish the full civilizational framework and its inherent cultural standards, because while we might possess the knowledge itself, what we choose to do with it ultimately hinges upon your own civilizational outlook. Are you listening? Oh, hello.
To corroborate Your Excellency's words, this year, a new dimension was introduced to Dubai's excellence framework in the Emirates, known as behavioral insights. Behavioral insights is an extremely important criterion among the vision standards, and consequently, it accounts for a significant portion of the overall score. Behavioral insights for individuals encompasses their behavior, their core values, and their communication tools. It involves the form of communication. It has a legacy. It also includes most of the dimensions that you kindly referred to, which fall under the criteria of behavioral insights.
Okay, that reminds me, when you want to evaluate an institution, considering how much potential it might have, and financially it receives massive investment, but when you hold meetings with the senior leadership, you'll find the same old thinking and the same old visions. So, at the highest levels of leadership, we never have any issues concerning the visions or the leader. But when you descend to level 1, is that same leader directly involved and aligned with the mechanisms for implementing those existing visions or not? When we are discussing the instruments, the tools for measuring the behavior and the values that are specific to the organization.
I'd like to ask you a question, a rather important one. You see, we had agreed, you and I, based on your extensive experience, your esteemed expertise concerning data and general matters, what exactly would that be?
General opinion, what are the most indicators that will mislead the decision makers in all ways? What are the indicators that will mislead the decision makers? We did not speak about policy, but I'll speak here now. So I guess
He believes he knows absolutely everything about the trends in public opinion. And this is a very clear and distinct direction, indeed, a very evident trend. And even within the most advanced and highly developed countries, this signifies a pattern that we are witnessing on a very large scale. And these particular matters represent the utmost danger and criticality for the individual who holds the power of decision-making, especially when they are being presented with comprehensive data pertaining to public opinion trends or any other significant indicators. These indicators are presented in a way that is unprofessional or lacks professional ethics, meaning there might be professional errors in calculations in sample selection. Ultimately, it's deliberate, and sometimes it's due to ignorance or intent in both cases. And let me provide a few more examples, assuming the data was collected in a professional and ethical manner, and so forth. Very often, we tend to view society as if it were just one single, unified community, and we overlook the fundamental idea of segmenting or dividing society into distinct groups.
Get the segmentation or other classes in the society. We have survey, UNDP, for AI and how the people like. The total number of the using the AI, is it useful or negative, positive or negative? 60% positive, 40% negative. Decision makers will be happy, but if there are any segmentations, you will see the educators, education, well-educated people, civilized people, and the non-civilized people, urban people, and Bedouin people, and the young ages and middle ages and higher ages, then he will have some differentiations. So in the statistics, always we have the reason of the differentiations is the main reason of statistics.
In opinions, in physical structure, in one's physique, and in health, etc. There wouldn't be a measurement problem then, but the main issue lies in this disparity, and often it's not adequately presented to decision makers, so they end up making decisions like that. And this, of course, inevitably leads to a great many serious disasters. Exactly. So, I believe that the entire process of transferring, or rather, conveying crucial knowledge and insights from the technical experts and specialists to the decision makers is absolutely vital. It must undergo a truly critical phase, which entails a specific kind of oversight concerning the quality of the data being showcased. This covers its professional integrity, the precise method of its presentation, and its direct relevance to the decision maker. And at this point, I circle back to Via Future to reiterate that we are not speaking in a vacuum. We are speaking within a significant economic, social, political, and cultural framework. It is extremely important that this specific data is situated within it. Therefore, it is quite possible that the policies being implemented in any particular nation may not be appropriate for every single segment of the community. It is absolutely essential that these policies are sufficiently detailed and carefully tailored to effectively reach their intended objectives. However, it is also crucial that there is no selected bias whatsoever in their overall presentation. We don't want to be delivering bad news. We want to be delivering good news. And consequently, nothing is truly changing in the conditions of the people or in the policies that are being announced by governments. Therefore, these matters, and this specific issue in particular, must be regarded with the utmost seriousness, because in reality, there are numerous transgressions that are currently taking place, and we have also monitored violations occurring in many developed nations. I mean, this isn't something that's confined solely to the Arab region, but these kinds of things, they certainly do occur in other areas. But there's something that we lack, you see, it could be present elsewhere and then gets revealed. But here, perhaps, that's not the case. Or maybe not. It is to be through scientific associations and civil society organizations.
Scientific associations, civil community associations, research centers as well. So as long as you have the role, you have the so we try to hear the speaker actually. So I guess there is uh, no good enough information available here and to support the decision maker as well. I guess the fast food age is the main age right now. The current age, it's a fast food everywhere. Fast information, fast food, fast information. So we have to support the decision maker because the slides should be normal, not very big number of slides in the presentation, maybe 50 or less. So we have to explain exactly in a smart way, not bad way. So we have to make in quality, and we have to make variation as well.
Drawing on your experience in designing knowledge economy policies, Doubts, Vera. I'd already turned it off. Based on your experience in designing knowledge economy policies, what are the most crucial requirements for implementing the three, as you were discussing earlier, before this session, the transformation of the Global Knowledge Index indicators from being just mere numbers or even simple measurements into a truly effective implementation roadmap? You've been directly involved in the practical implementation of this in your work, so please tell us a little bit about this magic recipe.
We can present to you the experience of the state of Kuwait in this regard, specifically with the Knowledge Index, as it is always frequently stated that what cannot be accurately measured cannot effectively be managed within our indicators. In the National Development Plan, we utilize numerous indicators to formulate public policies within the state, and among these was the Global Knowledge Index, which we extensively used.
So we use these indicators, our measurements. At the beginning, we see the Kuwait location around the world. Try to find a way to reach the top 20. As for these gaps, we started to make some studies to discuss and to make the gaps, to fill the gaps actually for this index. So we have these studies. We put several to improve the education and learning, and we move from policy to another policy to another project, actual projects in the higher educational ministry and also infrastructure. Example here, we have some gaps over here, and we put some policies to support or to reduce these gaps between the communities in the country or the other organization in the country. We have decided to improve the digital infrastructure, and the government started to move to digital government as well. It helped a lot of we have several discussions with Professor Hojo Hollanders. This indexes has not impact on the policies. No, actually, we have some support related in details, related in the impact, and it became actual policies and real projects as well. Thank you very much.
And again, to our previous discussion, some indicators have shown surprising shifts, and those are the most beloved to your heart, innovation and ICT. From your perspective, which of these shifts carry the strongest signal for policymakers preparing for the future, or as Dr. Sally was speaking about, being fit for the future?
Okay, now it should work. Okay, that's probably because I'm not wearing my headset. Actually, that's quite a challenging question, because you are asking a question about change, which would imply that one would be able to compare the results over time, which at the moment is a little bit difficult with the Global Knowledge Index, as it includes results for 1 year. But one could combine the results of different reports and then see, for example, in which areas countries are doing better or doing worse. If you look at research, development and innovation, I would invite the audience to look at the 2024 report and the 2025 report, and also look at the differences. Because we do see change in several of the indicators, but we also see that the list of indicators has changed. Some of them have been removed. There were also some new indicators. What I would say most challenging is, I think, for a government is to see improvements in the area of impacts. As a government, for example, you can increase inputs. You can, as I said before, for example, with R&D tax credits or subsidies, increase the amount of R&D expenditures by businesses. But it's really about the impact. So what's the result? For example, the result in a number of patents and new technologies, the result in a number of new innovations. So I would have a look at those indicators, which one can label as impact, and see if countries are improving in that area. Because in the end, you're investing money into your knowledge process, into your research, development, and innovation process. But what you're really interested in is not so much how much you are investing, but how much you're getting out of the process. And these, for me, would be the most interesting indicators, of course, in relation with the input indicators, because you still need inputs to be able to get to outputs. So for me, output, impact would be the most interesting indicators as a policymaker to look at and to evaluate. And then, of course, how you use reports like the Global Knowledge Index. Once you identified areas, for example, where you're not doing well, try to identify countries which are performing well in that area, and then go beyond a report like the Global Knowledge Index and try to identify what kind of policies did these countries introduce in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and see if these policies could also be useful and could also be implemented in your country. So use a report like the Global Knowledge Index, not just purely for the data, but also identify areas where you're weak, possible peer countries, countries that you can learn from, and then the next step is the more qualitative aspect. Try to identify policy documents, try to understand why some countries are doing better in some areas than other countries.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Hugo. دكتورة سالي، بصفتك تعملي في منظمة دولية.
Dr. Sally, as you are working here in an international organization here, I'd like to ask you, I would like to ask you a question, please. Some other countries are very fast improving. What are the impact of this? What is the reasons for this? There are plenty of abilities in world changing and also comprehensive and sustainable changes here. So we try to do as much as we can here to apply. I guess, as Dr. Hugo has explained here, this is very important to concentrate here as internationally and locally, and see some other countries are successful to achieve and some other cannot achieve. So I guess the difference is the civilized or urban framework. So we have to be closer to the international cooperation between countries. Always we have some points and data inside the countries, inside the establishments, but we do our best to achieve and to empower the minorities and different aspects. As His Excellency Minister mentioned, these segments should be clear and obvious. In the other side, it should be some other explanation and joint explanation for all people, not only for specific people. So some sustainable should be very important, and the impact as well. So it's very important to have this in many countries for SDGs. But with the COVID-19, we found plenty of programs are collapsed because it was very weak without any support from the society and to apply to the society here. As His Excellency Minister explained here, the data and information should be well used and allied according to the values of the societies, with different segments should be well explained as well. So we can say the equivalency here is the main key for sustainability. The values are very important. Otherwise, we'll collapse in front of any clashes or crisis. Thank you. So I would like to ask a joint question. We spoke about the culture capital and human capital. We speak about many things here. So we have speak about several points of views, and finally here, the execution of this data. And toward these challenges, big challenges here, either in our Arab countries or other way. So we try to do our best here. How we can support and how can the countries can join between these two dimensions and to close gaps in between the education and the readiness for the future. We start with Dr. Osman, please.
Thanks for this other difficult question. Well, actually, let's consider this topic as if data is a gateway. It's supposed to be a public good. Ideally, it should be considered a public good, and consequently, it is a fundamental right for all. And it is the right of every individual to perceive it, and it is also the right of everyone to derive benefit from it. Furthermore, it is the right of the decision maker to apply it in a manner that genuinely serves the collective good. Therefore, this truly represents the crux of the matter in numerous significant market-related affairs.
As you mentioned, but to answer such answer here, it's very important the organizational culture here to take care and be careful about this. And we cannot speak about an ideal vision to move from the for the decision makers to take some policies, very easy policies, but otherwise we have to get very strong data and information. And as Dr. Sally said, that the urban readiness. And it's very important also to have this readiness. So how to create such? The first one here, and the second one should be morals and governance as well, to have strong support and confidence to reach the right economic policies.
So, if we as Arabs agree that the solution is for all of us to work for the benefit of the entire community and not just for specific groups or factions, I truly believe this will resolve the issue. And what complements this will then become a bit more technical, meaning how exactly do we arrive at sound decisions and how do we ensure they are truly operational. But the important thing is that the conviction, the belief must be there that this is what is supposed to happen. I don't want to take up too much of the valuable time of my colleagues, both male and female.
أنا أعتقد يمكن في البداية الأهم هو وعي الجهات بأهمية هذا الربط بين الجميع. في مؤشر هنا.
There is an indicator that we worked on, the knowledge indicator and the and knowledge. So there was a integration and link, and that the challenge in that link was the lack of awareness. So what do we mean by knowledge management or the knowledge economy? The first benefit we got from this is the spread of awareness. At the beginning, we got into with all government entities and explaining, increasing the awareness of this concept. So I think the main pillar here is to increase the awareness for all entities of all specifications, that they should work together as one unit to reach to the expected outcomes.
It was an interesting question. Let me try to deviate a little bit. I mean, the session is about the real-world impact of the Global Knowledge Index. You can also turn around and say, what's the real-world impact of composite indicators in general? I think I have more than 25 years of experience working on composite indicators. It's really about raising awareness, making people aware about the relevance of a particular topic. In this particular case, it's about knowledge. I think most people already are aware that knowledge is relevant, knowledge is important, but there are many different dimensions on knowledge. It's the importance. You have the creation of knowledge at different levels. You have, say, more general knowledge related to basic skills. You have more advanced knowledge. Then we, for example, think about vocational training and higher education. But it's also about knowledge, how the knowledge is being used, how knowledge is being diffused, how knowledge can actually create not only economic value, but also social value. And many of these aspects are covered in the Global Knowledge Index, but not always to the highest possible level of detail. And it's still a statistical exercise. So you build your knowledge index on the statistical data that are available. And sometimes you want to cover aspects for which data are not yet available. So I think as policymakers and also as statisticians, you have to be aware of what not only are the current needs of a global knowledge index, but also what are the future needs. Where is knowledge evolving into? For example, what will be the role of artificial intelligence? How can we capture this in our measurement framework? So it's not just like the knowledge index is helping policymakers, but I also think that policymakers should be helping the knowledge index in making clear, for example, what kind of expectations are needed for new data to be used in exercises like the knowledge index in 3-5 years from now. And my experience is that statistical systems move slowly. Even if as a policymaker you are convinced that something is important, then try to convince your statistical office that they actually have to give up an existing activity and replace it with a new activity for collecting new data. So you really need to have, say, forward-looking, active and convincing policymakers who, in collaboration with the statistical offices, can collect the data that are needed to help you understand how is knowledge actually already performing in your country, but also what kind of knowledge dimensions will become important and what kind of data do we need to better understand how countries are evolving and if countries are actually making the best possible use of the potential they have.
شكرا الحقيقة أنا هجاوب.
Thank you very much. I will answer with a very important value when it comes to the corporate education, which is the continuous learning. It's very important to look into or to have a comprehensive vision, and we learn from the past. I am representing Cisco and the Islamic world. There are lessons learned for the Islamic culture since the start. The first common aim was to focus on education and knowledge, and therefore this culture reached from China to Europe, and we can see the start of all sciences comes from this culture. I don't say it's the lack of knowledge, but it's the cultural gap into applying these knowledges. One of the very important lessons learned that we see that what are the gaps happened in the Islamic culture, where we counted and selected data as what His Excellency the Minister said. Some of the people decided to do a survey and say, when there was about the printing, and they said the printing or the typing will impact the writing of Quran, and they decided not to allow the printing technology to enter into the culture, and therefore being rigid on the cultural or an indifference into the various segments. Very important statements and very important words, and I hope we stay together for hours to get more values. But for everything, if it's not continued, it will eventually. At the end of this hour, we can say that the knowledge indicator is not a table of numbers, but it's based on what we know and what we ignore. Data of this year proved that the biggest and the riskiest gap is not education or innovation, but it's what we measure and what we choose to measure. So when the numbers...
How? Our guests today have presented a rare lesson that knowledge is not merely a race between nations, but a shared responsibility towards all humanity in this world. A single individual lives in a world of great complexity, and every figure in this report is, at its core, a profound ethical question for each and every one of us. So, what we carry with us today are not merely answers, but a renewed courage to pose the crucial questions. How can we effectively transform compelling evidence into actionable policies? How do we prevent our collective future from irrevocably slipping away from our grasp? And how do we ensure that knowledge becomes a powerful force to truly save humanity, rather than just reports meticulously counting its every single step? My profound gratitude goes out to each and every one of you, Dr. Magad Osman, Dr. Sally Mabruk, Dr. Iman Al-Shaya, and Dr. Hugo Holland. You have truly graced us with your presence and insights today, and I am deeply thankful for all the thought-provoking new questions and fresh ideas that you have so generously presented to us. We meet at a higher point on the curve of understanding. May you be in the care of the Lord of awareness, wisdom, and knowledge. Welcome all.